Going back to Thursday Night Football, the Green Bay Packers took on the Detroit Lions for the second time this year. The first go-around wasn't the best showing for the Green Bay Packers, and despite being in a dome team, the Detroit Lions went into rainy Lambeau Field and outmatched, outphysicaled, and bullied the Green Bay Packers on their home turf. Since Detroit has looked dominant, and they have since not lost a game since week 2. They are 11-1 coming into this game, but they have had a few injuries along the way. Actually, they have 70 players on IR, with many of those being on defense. And with the Eagles' recent rise and winning 8-9 games themselves, many dubbed that the Eagles are the hottest team in the NFC. Now, on Thursday night, Detroit reminded us on who really is the NFC powerhouse, because they came out with a high-flying start, entering halftime 17-7 over the Green Bay Packers. And in the second half, you did see a good fight back from Green Bay. They actually took the lead, and they were in somewhat control heading into the fourth quarter. But yet again, Dan Campbell makes the plays, makes the decisions at least, to gamble late, and that proved to be evident in their 34-31 victory at the gun. And going from the Green Bay side of things, you can see that they're just 3-4 plays behind the Detroit Lions. I feel like they match up really well with Detroit, but when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, Detroit is just better at this point. Green Bay had a really good day defensively. I thought that they shut down Detroit's running game with Sonic and Knuckles, with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. But in the process, they said, okay, Jared Goff, you go ahead and beat us. And on Thursday night, he did. Jared Goff, at least for a good portion of this year, has been an MVP candidate, and he had a really good day, 3 touchdowns, with 2 going to Tim Patrick in the second half. And yet again, it's really hard. You can maybe stop one part of this Detroit offense, but when Jared Goff is clicking, especially at home on a turf, fast field, fast surface, Jared Goff is going to make many defenses pay, and he did so on Thursday night. And with many people not really being too keen on Dan Campbell's wrist, I mean, you live and die with that aggressive nature. Last year against the San Francisco 49ers, he went for it a couple of times instead of opting for field goals and didn't convert, and that did lead to Detroit's eventual loss to the San Francisco 49ers at the NFC Championship game. And he still sticks to his guns, which is something I can respect, and we'll see how often he can go back to that well of luck, and sometimes the well ends up being dry. But for right now, the gambles for Dan Campbell this season have worked. Detroit, with this win at least, has proven that they're one of the elite teams in the NFL. And with next week, they're playing the Buffalo Bills. We'll learn more about them. They're not quite out of the woods yet to lock up the division or the number 1 seed, because in the division at least, the Vikings are right behind them, and the Eagles are also a game back of the Detroit Lions for the 1 seed. And we'll see what they're really made of against a kind of a desperate Buffalo Bills team, who we'll get to a little bit later. But with the events that happened on Sunday, I think Buffalo is going to be coming out firing on all cylinders, and we'll see how they match up with the Detroit Lions. Detailing about the Packers side of things, I mean, you're seeing a good contribution from Josh Jacobs, who has been mostly good for this season, and with having a hat trick of touchdowns, you can see that Detroit's defense, especially in the running game, has some holes, especially with all those injuries starting to pile up. And I really do think that if these two teams do meet again, which there is a pathway for, as if the Green Bay Packers get to the 6th seed in the NFC playoff picture, they would likely play either the NFC West winner or the NFC South winner. And between those two teams, I think they have been better this year, and they could upset one of those two division winners, and that would potentially set up a rematch in the divisional round against the Detroit Lions. And like I said, they've been 3 to 4 plays behind or out of sync against the Detroit Lions, and the luxury is now you have 2 full games of tape. That's something that only Minnesota would really have at their disposal, and that is a distinct advantage. It's really hard to beat a team 3 times in a year, and especially with an encouraging second matchup on the road in Ford Field. You're right there. It just took a sweep of the leg from Jake Bates to make it a Detroit victory, but I do think that Green Bay matches up well, and should these two teams meet again in the postseason, that we wouldn't be surprised that the Packers come up with an upset against the Detroit Lions.